Great. Welcome everybody. Thank you so much for joining today for this free Astral Projection workshop about how to reach 100% success rate with Astral Projection. My name is Florentine and I help people succeed with Astral Projection through an online training program that I've designed, which is designed to basically teach you how to do this at will. It's called the Astral Projection Accelerator Program, and I'll talk more about it at the end of this free workshop. But for now, let's dive into the workshop and talk about what are actually the three main things that we need to focus on when it comes to Astral Projection. And the three main things, the key components that I like to call them, is the mindset, the strategy, and the science that puts everything together, right? And so when you have these three key components, you can then create your personal projection blueprint. And what that is basically the blueprint that consists of all the different ingredients, all the things that you have to do in order to have a successful projection. So when you have your blueprint, then you can simply repeat the things that are in the blueprint so that you can get out of body on a regular basis. And I would say most explorers do not have this at all. And we're going to talk about how to create one for yourself today. So this is going to be a very interesting workshop. I know you're going to get a lot of value from it. So let's get started. Now, the first thing I would like to do is to just kind of ask some questions for you guys that are watching right now, and also while we're waiting for more people to join the workshop. Tell me, guys, tell me where you're from. Where are you, which country are you watching this workshop from right now? And just comment in the comment field, basically, where you're from. It can be which city. Can be which country. It's just interesting for us to know, what countries are interested in this subject. What type of person is interested in this? Because it's a very interesting subject. I think everyone should be interested in it. But let's check out here. Which countries. All right, great. Thank you for that. And now I also want you to just comment what level you are at with the practice. Are you somebody that has just started with this, you're a beginner, or maybe you've been doing it for a couple of years? Where are you at in the journey? Just write that in the comments just so we know where you're at. Okay. All right, great. Thank you. And so this is going to be an interactive workshop. I'm going to ask you to do things. It's not just going to be me telling you things and you're just going to look at me. I'm also going to give you some instructions, like now, on things that is going to move your practice forward. So let's move on to the next thing now. And so I think at this point, it will make sense to just kind of introduce myself a little bit more. Because some of you know me, some of you don't know me. So just so that everyone knows where I am, who I am, and what my story is, this is my story.
My name is Florentine Ionita, and I am a truth seeker. Movies like The Matrix inspire me to not only ask more existential questions and develop spiritually, but also to pursue a career working with the effects for Hollywood movies. Through many synchronicities and going deep down the rabbit hole, I was led to the profound knowledge of Astral Projection. Some people have these experiences from childhood. I call them gifted children, and I was not one of them. It was not easy for me to Astral Project. I've spent years practicing and learning from different teachers, and with the help of my technical background, I was able to create my own Astral Projection system and tools which enabled me and others to start Astral Project at will. I've since become obsessed with making these systems and tools so powerful that it can help anyone succeed with Astral Projection. My mission is to empower humanity to become a conscious, multidimensional species capable of traveling and exploring the multiverse in order to expand our consciousness. I believe that Astral Projection is the next big step in our human evolution. Imagine what life would be like if we knew that death is not the end, if we could easily connect with deceased loved ones or spiritual guides when needed. Imagine us exploring the multiverse and bringing back valuable knowledge that would help revolutionize the way we live our lives and our understanding of it. If we could collectively start tapping into our multidimensional abilities, we could together transform the world into a better place. A place with more unity, peace, and compassion. A place where people would no longer perceive each other as separate and in competition, but instead as one big galactic family. A place where we knew that we are spiritual beings and one in essence. And all of this not through reading books or listening to a preacher, but through actual first-hand experiences with astral projections. And it all starts with you. So I'm looking forward to start teaching you how you can tap into your powers and start your astral journey tonight.
All right, so let's get started. So we're going to start off with the mindset. The mindset is the most important part to the practice, I would say. And I actually did a whole workshop just on the mindset. We're going to touch upon some of the most important aspects of the mindset, but there's a lot more to say. But just to keep it simple, we're just going to focus on what is crucial. So what is firstly crucial is before you start with this practice, before you start practicing and learning in different techniques and stuff, you need to first start at the very beginning. Why are you even doing this? What is the meaning for you? Why do you want to astral project? Is it just for fun? Is it just for exploring for fun? Or is it something deeper? How would your life be better if you achieved having this experience? And of course, that goes hand in hand with what is it that you want to achieve with astral projection. And so, it might be that you want to reconnect with a deceased loved one. It might be that you want to travel to the past or to the future, read the Akashic records. It might be that you want to heal. It might be that you want to find out the truth about yourself, your existence, where you come from, where you're going, connect with spiritual guides. There can be different things like that. So before you dive into this, it's really important that you actually just figure out what it is that is calling you to this. Okay? So let's do this. We're going to now take a moment and you're going to write down these key desires on a piece of paper, somewhere where you can have it for yourself. Okay, so let's take a moment and let's do that right now. All right, and welcome back. So now that you have your key desire, the reason why you want to astral project, I also want you to put a number on it. How important is it for you to achieve this on a scale of 1 to 10? So 10 would be the most important thing in your life. Of course, let's not say it's as important as your family or friends or your loved ones. Let's put 10 where 10 is basically like more important than your career, more important than your studies, your work, your financials, more important than your house, your car, anything materialistic, anything basically. That's a 10, and then a 1 is obviously not important at all. Okay, So write that number down after your desire. And then I also want you to post this right now in the comments. Post in the comments what your reason is. Why do you want to astral project? Post it in the comments, and also post the number that you chose. How important is it for you to astral project on a scale of 1 to 10? How important is it for you to succeed with this? Put that in the comments field right now. Okay. Excellent. Very good. So again, this is the reason we do this is because when it comes to astral projection, it's not something that just happens overnight. I'm not going to sit here and tell you astral project tonight. No, it's something that takes time. It's just like going to the gym and you work on the different muscles and you start seeing them growing gradually, right? And so the same thing, like the gym or any other sport, you need to have a reason to why you're going there in the first place, because otherwise you're going to be one of those people that join the gym after New Year's Eve because they think they want to get fit, and they come once or twice to the gym and then they never come again. And that's because their desire isn't very defined. Their why isn't very defined, and also there might be other problems as well, which we're going to talk about after this. But the why is very important, that you have defined exactly why you're doing this, so that when it's time for you to go to sleep at night early, let's say you have to go to sleep at 10, 9 early so that you can wake up and do this practice, you need to know why you're prioritizing it before any other thing. Maybe you can watch a Netflix movie instead. So why not watch the last seasons of Lord of the Rings or whatever it is that's coming out? Why astral project? Why is that more important to you? Or is it more important to you? Because that's why. If it's just for fun, then you probably will just put it on the side. So it needs to be a very high desire, and you need to have a very strong reason to why you're doing this. And then everything else is going to be much easier then, because you have a perspective on what is key for you right now. Okay? So let's move on. The next part of the mindset is you have to define your limiting beliefs. And so this is like the desire we were talking about before is the positive force that is moving you forward. So that's why you have to define it, so that you know what it is, so you can go with it. Now, the limiting beliefs, this is the negative force that is pushing against where you want to go. And so a limiting belief can be different things. I wrote a few things here. It can be that you just have a limiting belief about your ability to astral project, or is it possible to astral project? Maybe you think it's not possible. Maybe you think it's too good to be true or something. That will be a limiting belief. In my case, I used to believe that when I started, I used to believe that astral projection was possible. I mean, I was also doubting that in the very beginning, but then I was like seeing a lot of people around me that was having experiences, and I decided that I was gonna believe that it was possible. But then my personal limiting belief was that I didn't think it was gonna be possible for me, because every time I would go to different meditation workshops or healing workshops or anything like that, I would always hear people talk about how they experience energies and seeing things, and they can see people's auras and all of this stuff that they were able to do, and I couldn't do any of that stuff. I barely was able to meditate, or I never did that either. So I was very new to this, and I just thought maybe I'm not going to be able to do this. And so that was my limiting belief. But luckily, I just pushed through. I just went with it. I didn't give up. I just kept going forward. And so then, once I had my first astral projection, that was when the limiting belief of me not being able to do it dissolved immediately, because I had proof. And it's the same for everybody. And it doesn't even have to be that you get out of body. It can also be that you reach the famous vibrational state. If you reach that state, you start feeling the vibrations, or maybe you are reaching a state where you start hearing voices or seeing images, which is also one of those milestones, well, then you know that it is possible for you because you are having these experiences. And while we're on that subject, I also want to bring some clarity on something else that I've got a question about from one of my students the other day, which was, do I have to open my third eye before I can astral project? Is my third eye calcified and therefore I won't be able to astral project? And the answer is really that if you're having dreams, if you're remembering having dreams, you wake up in the morning and you have dreams, a dream is also a type of projection, but it's a projection in the mental plane. So the mental plane is a dimension, the astral plane is another dimension, the etheric plane is another dimension. So there's different dimensions that we can project ourselves to. If you're able to have a dream, that means that you will be able to have an astral projection as well and an etheric projection as well. What exactly does the role of the third eye play into this? I would say not enough scientific research has been done to really identify how much it is affecting this practice. So I don't want to go into the details of that because that's something that hasn't been discovered enough. But what I can say is that if you're having dreams, then this will work for you as well. And so that can be a limiting belief as well, thinking that, oh, well, I have a calcified pineal gland because I've been drinking a lot of tap water and having lots of fluoride toothpaste for I don't know how many years, and therefore I won't be able to astral project. That's a limiting belief. And having a belief like that will literally not make you progress because you believe that it's just not possible for you because of this and this reason. And there are thousands of limiting beliefs that you can have. Like, people have all kinds of them. Fears will also be a limiting belief because it's a belief that limits you. If you have a fear, for example, that if you get out of body, that you won't be able to return back to the body, which is one of the common beliefs, common fears, or that someone will possess you, or these are like some of the most common fears that people have. And this is a limiting belief in itself, and you cannot astral project if you have them. Or you're able to do it a little bit, but then you will have very little success because the fear is literally holding you back from having the success with this practice. So I would like right now for you guys to actually just define what those are for you as well, because now we defined the desires, we know how strong they are, and we know what they are. Now let's define the fears, let's define the limiting beliefs that you might have around this practice. So just take a moment and just write down whatever comes up to you as you sort of imagine yourself doing the practice, laying there, you're getting out of body. Like, imagine yourself doing this whole process up until you're out of body, you're traveling around your neighborhood, let's say, or you go to other dimensions. What comes up in that moment? Like, what kind of fears, what kind of limiting beliefs comes up as you're thinking about this? What kind of things comes up? And what kind of things comes up when you're thinking about learning this as well? Because sometimes people don't have a limiting belief about doing it, but they have a limiting belief about succeeding with it. They might have tried for many, many years. I have talked to people that have even tried for 50 years. So if you try for 50 years, then of course you're going to have a limiting belief that this is not possible for you because you tried for such a long time. So whatever that belief is, whatever that limiting belief is, whatever that negative thought or fear is, take a moment now and write it down. I'll give you a moment. All right, welcome back. So, you have now written down your limiting belief. I want you now to write that limiting belief or that fear or whatever you found. If it's not too personal, please share it with us in the comments. Write down in the comments what that limiting belief was, what you feel when you're thinking about doing this, what you feel is stopping you on an emotional level. Is there a childhood trauma? Is there a fear? Is it a limiting belief? Whatever it is, write it down in the comments section now. All right, very good, very good. Now I also want you to write on a scale of 1 to 10, how strong is that fear or limiting belief on a scale of 1 to 10. So 1 is basically it's not strong at all, doesn't really matter. 10 is like, oh, this is like blocking me from doing anything. I'm terrified. If it's a fear, I'm like super terrified. If it's a limiting belief, then it's like a very, very rigid belief. 1 to 10, okay? So write down a number next to that. Okay, very good, very good. All right, so now that we have your limiting beliefs, fears, if you had some, of course, and we also know how strong they are, this is where you have to look at this and go, okay, and this is how I would work with my students as well within my program. We would look at what comes up. If the let's say it's a fear of exploring the unknown, which I think we all have more or less. So if that fear is like a 3, a 4, it's okay. That's gonna go away as you practice. You go out of body, you notice you're okay, you come back, you're okay, you go out of body again, you explore a little bit more, you come back, and slowly and surely this fear will just go away. It will go from a 4 to a 3 to a 2 to a 1. It just goes away by itself by doing the practice. But if your fear is above 5, it's like a 6 or a 7 or an 8 or more, okay, then that's serious. That needs to be taken care of. That needs to be like strategically figured out a system to solve this. One of the ways that you can do that is to simply reverse the limiting belief into an empowering belief, but also inversing it to an empowering belief that is that you can believe in, that doesn't sound too far-fetched. So for example, if you have a limiting belief of being able to astral project, let's say you wrote I'm not gifted enough to astral project, which was that was my limiting belief, right? If that was yours, well, then just inverting it to saying I am able to astral project. That's not going to work, because it's like lying to yourself, because you don't really believe it when you say it. You have to believe what you're saying. So you inverse it to something more believable for you. So it can be something like this. It can be I am getting better and better at astral projecting every day. I am enabling myself on a daily basis to become an astral projection explorer. I am, something to do with you doing this or changing this belief on a gradual level, day by day. It's changing. It's not changing like this, because your mind will not believe that, but it's changing gradually. That's something that you can believe, because you know that if you're doing the practice, if you're working on it, you can change yourself, right? And so you can take literally all your limiting beliefs, you write them down one after another, and you then invert them to the positive, to a believable positive, not just the inverse, because like I said, that's something that you won't believe. So it needs to be something that you are okay with, you're comfortable with. And then you can literally, there's multiple ways of doing this. You can read these affirmations out for yourself, print them out and read them on a daily basis. What we do in the program is that we create a customized track for the students in the program. So they get special soundtracks that they're listening to that helps them to reprogram their limiting belief into an empowering belief, so that those goes away. However, if it's something that's more serious, if your fear is like a 10, an 8, this is not really going to work. This is going to work for maybe a 5, a 6, it's going to work for those. But if we're talking about some, you have a very strong anxiety around this, maybe you had sleep paralysis when you were a kid, you need something a bit more powerful than this. And so what we do with our students when there's a problem like this that's very high on the scale, a 9 or an 8 or a 10, we would work with a hypnotherapist or a healer, which is on our team, that then will be able to go really, really deep and find out where this is coming from. Why do you have this fear? Where is it? Does it come from your childhood? Does it come from your parents? How did this start? And hypnotherapy is very powerful to go back and heal these kind of things. Or maybe it's not something like that. Maybe sometimes we have students that they want to astral project because they want to connect with a deceased loved one that has passed away, but they're filled with grief. They're struggling. They're not feeling good. They're shaking. They're crying. They're really sad. And so in that case, it's not a limiting belief as such. It's more like an emotional state that is difficult to work from. It's a very difficult emotional state. So what we do then is that they get to work with a healer that is able to help you release these trapped emotions that you have in your body, so that you can be free of these very difficult emotions, be light, so that you then can focus on the practice. And so you really need to resolve all of these blockages that limiting beliefs are. This is, a block, a limiting belief is very much the same thing. Fear, limiting belief, blocks. You need to resolve this. You need to really handle this before you can move on and start with the practice. So this is what we work on in my program in the first week. We make sure that the desire is defined. We make sure that the fears, the limiting beliefs, everything is defined, and that you are able to be free from them to move forward and actually start learning how to project. And I suggest you guys do the same. If you're doing this on your own, you really want to make sure to not skip this important step with the mindset. All right, now let's talk about the strategy. So when we're talking about the strategies, basically now that you know why you're doing this, you have the mindset in the right place, you removed all the blockages, there's nothing stopping you, you know exactly what you're doing and why, you're clear. Okay, so what do you do now? Where do you start? What do you do? Well, first of all, you want to make sure that you have everything else in your physical life ready for this practice. So what do I mean by that? Well, you're going to have to dedicate some significant amount of time to this practice. I would say I normally recommend to have at least 2 hours 3 times a week's practice. So 2 hours 3 days of the week. I would say that's the minimum requirement to be able to do this practice and have some sort of success. And it's very similar to how it is if you want to go to the gym and get muscles or learn a new skill or a sport. You need to dedicate quite a lot of time to it. The more time you give to it, the more you're going to have success, especially if you're doing it the right way, right? If you're doing it the wrong way, you can dedicate a lot of time and nothing's going to happen, which is also one of the problems with the practice, is that people practice in the wrong way. We'll talk about that later. But first, you want to set up a good environment where you're actually able to practice. So you want to make sure that you have a room, a bed, somewhere you can practice. I always recommend to actually do it in a separate room than the one you're sleeping, because you have associated your sleeping room to your sleeping room. It's where your bed is, where you sleep, and you're conditioned to sleep there. So it's better to have another room. If you have that in your house or apartment, you can convert one of the rooms into an astral projection room. It's great. You can decorate it, nice sleep with the dim light, have a specific type of sofa there or a bed, whatever it is, and you have your headphones there, your whole equipment, everything that you have to do with the practice, maybe crystals, you have all of that in the astral room. And then you simply just wake up from your bed and you go into the astral room to practice. And then you want to make sure that you don't have any loud, flatmates that are having a party when you're trying to practice, or kids crying, or whatever it is. You want to have the right environment so that you can actually practice when you want to. And you have to eliminate all the obstacles that might be in the way. So you want to make sure to have basically physical life. So you worked on the inner self. You decided what the mindset was, what the desire was, everything. This is all internal stuff. You figured that out. Now it's time to focus on the external stuff. Okay, now how do I get time for the practice? When do I have a moment in my schedule that I can do this? Is it in the morning? Usually for most people, including myself, it's always in the morning before I start work or anything else like that. And so you want to put that in your calendar. You want to make sure that you schedule in your practice in the same way that you schedule in your work, or you schedule in your workout, or your leisure time with your friends, dinner, whatever it is. You want to put it in your calendar. So for example, I use Google Calendar. I just put my practices in the calendar. It's very, it's big, it's red, it says Astral Projection practice, and I know, okay, these are the days and the times that I'm going to wake up and I'm going to do this practice. It's there. And then I have to be consistent and show up for the practice, right? So you want to set the environment. You want to make sure that you have everything you need. You have the headphones you need, you have the sofa, the bed, the room, you have the time, and then you want to start putting in the work. You want to start doing the practice. And then, of course, the next part is, well, what is the practice? What is the method that you're going to be using, right? And this is where a lot of people go wrong, because they would go to YouTube to watch a video there that says do this to get out of body tonight, and then they try it and nothing really happened, and they don't know why. Is it because they did something wrong? Is it maybe that they needed to go with that method for a longer time? What is supposed to happen? Why didn't I get out of body? There's a lot of questions and no answers, really. There's nobody that you can talk to. And also, it's not a proven method. A lot of times it's just methods that people just write on YouTube or somewhere. But is it proven? And what do I mean by a proven method? A proven method is the type of methods that I'm using in the program, for example, which is a method that has been proven to work for a lot of people. People have success with these methods all of the time. And they're not based on some woo-woo concept. They're just based on science, on how your mind works, how your sleep schedule works, your sleep rhythms, your sleep cycles, all of that stuff. And it's a proven method because people have had proven results with these methods. And so you need one of those methods when you are doing this practice. So you have the mindset in place, you have the environment set up, you have the time, and now you also need the method that is going to help you get out of body, right? So let's talk about the science now. There are really three main methods that you can project with. And those three methods are basically, you can go from a dream where you become aware that in a dream that you are in a dream, and that becomes a lucid dream experience. And then you can transition from there into an astral projection. That will be one of the methods. Then the second method will be upon awakening from sleep. So when you're sleeping and then when you wake up from sleep, that moment where you're coming out of sleep and you're in your bed, that's a moment where you can also project from. And then the third and final method is the method which you're going into this state through deep meditation. And so those are the three main methods. And then there's a bunch of techniques, how you do all of these methods and stuff. That's a bunch of details, but those are the three main methods. And it really, there's the whole science around these three methods. It's quite simple, and I really want to make sure that you get this, because it's quite straightforward. It's not very complicated when it comes to what is actually happening. Because I remember when I started this, I thought this thing was like magic or something, like some sort of like spell or some sort of like weird abstract thing. I couldn't understand it. I couldn't put my head around it. But now, after doing this for a while, teaching it and developing tools for it and all that, it's very clear how straightforward it is actually. And the way it works is basically, let's say up here, you are awake. This is you when you're awake, wide awake, okay? And then down here, this is you when you are asleep, okay? Now, the state, this special correct state, as I stated here, that we're looking for, the right state, the correct state that you want to get into, is somewhere just above sleep. And so there's different methods that get you to this place. And like I said, one of them was you're starting from being asleep and you're waking up into this state. And I call that the semi-indirect method. And then there's the direct method, which is through deep meditation, that you start fully awake and then you meditate yourself deeply into this state. But it's the same state. It's not a different state. It's not something magical. It's just a specific state of consciousness where your body has fallen asleep while your mind is still awake, or at least parts of it. Like I would say a few percent of your conscious mind is just awake enough to realize what's happening. But a lot of the conscious mind is really, it's kind of like in this very relaxed state. It's just there enough to observe that it's getting into that state, just to notice what's happening. But it's very, very, very deep. And so the science is how do you get there? And how do you get there, and how do you get there consciously? Because what normally happens when we're going to sleep at night is that we actually get there, but we pass it and we fall asleep. And so now, with these methods, we're trying to get there without falling asleep. And so that's quite tricky in the beginning, and that's why it's a practice, because you need to train your awareness muscle to the point where you become good at sort of getting to this place, and also staying in this place. And this was not easy for me when I started, and it's not easy for most people either. And that's why you need some training wheels. And training wheels is basically what we can use for training wheels is basically these some sort of technology that's going to help you. So when you learn how to bicycle as a child, you have these bicycles with two wheels on the side that you put on, so that when you bicycle you can sort of balance. It's easy to balance. You don't fall off the bike because you have these training wheels. And then as you get better and better at balancing on the bike, you take away the training wheels, and then you can do it without, right? It's very much the same with the technology that we use to be able to get into these deep states. And so we use specific soundtracks with binaural beats, hypnosis, guided meditation, and a bunch of other stuff that I've developed over the years. And these technologies are really designed for a few different, they do a few different things. They first of all, they guide you through what you have to do, so you don't have to remember it in your mind. They tell you exactly what you need to do at the right time. So they guide you through the process. And then they help you to get, if you're practicing, for example, with the direct method, then there'll be a specific soundtrack for that method that will help you get from being fully awake and help you get very, very deep. It helps you to get deep enough so that you get into this correct state. And at the same time, they also help you to not fall asleep and forget about what you're doing, which is the most common thing that people do. They just fall asleep, and then they wake up a few hours later like, whoa, again, I fell asleep and I didn't get out of body. And it's so frustrating. And so these training wheels are helping you to not fall asleep. The same way that training wheels help you not fall off the bike, these training wheels help you to not fall asleep. They also help you to stay in the right state. And then there are other soundtracks we would use for other methods. So for example, these methods upon awakening from sleep, well then how do you wake up from sleep and remember what you have to do? Well, we have soundtracks for that too. So there's technology that's been designed for every method. And then what happens if you're a light sleeper? Or what happens if you're a deep sleeper? Well, then the same soundtrack is not going to work for you, right? So this is so crucial that you understand that this is not something that, you know, this is not a cookie cutter kind of approach to doing this practice. One method is not going to work for everybody. One soundtrack is not going to work for everybody. You need to really understand how you are as a person. Are you a deep sleeper? Are you a light sleeper? What is your schedule like for work? Are you a night person? Are you a morning person? What kind of person are you? And then once you understand yourself, you can then use the correct technology. And we have, you know, I've created technology for light sleepers or deep sleepers, even for super light sleepers, which is a lot of times a problem. That people can't fall asleep, for example. And so there's many issues that can occur, which is in the way for you to get into this correct state that we're trying to get to. We know we want to get there, but then how do you get there? You know, and how do you get there and stay there? How do you get there consistently? Right? How do you get there consistently? That is what getting out of body, having a 100% success rate is all about, is knowing how to get to this correct state every single time you practice. And then also being able to exit from that state and start having an out-of-body experience. Then when you worked out the whole spectrum of going from starting the practice, getting into that correct state, and then exiting, that's when you start having your projection blueprint defined. That's when you start knowing how you can have out-of-body experiences on a regular basis. All right, so let's now put all of these three concepts together: the mindset, the strategy, and the science. Okay, so you now know why you want to astral project. You have the mindset in place. You have the desire, you set it, you know what it is. And let's also imagine that you worked on your fears, your limits and beliefs, and they're not in the way anymore. You're free to start practicing. You're free to start with your strategy. And you have also a strategy. You know when you're going to do it, and you know how you're going to do it and where you're going to do it. And the how will be basically the method you'll be using, the proven method. And the where, you know, it'll be like the astral room, or maybe will be in the bedroom or somewhere where you decide to practice. And then you also decided what time is it going to be doing the practice. And so what happens then is really that's when the experimentation phase starts. And this is where really the science comes in. Because what you want to do, and this is something that most people do not do when it comes to this practice, and it's something that I focus on a lot with my students, is we are using the scientific method to actually figure out what it is that is working and what it is that is not working on an individual level. So like I said before, this practice is quite individual. The way somebody astral projects is not the same way maybe someone else does it. There's slightly different ways, and there's slightly different things that happens along the way, different signs. And so you need to personalize it to yourself. And the only way to do that is through experimentation. And so what you have to start doing is you want to become a scientist. You want to become your own scientist. And you want to start conducting experiments with yourself. So you can start seeing your let's say you have this astral room where you practice. You can see that as your lab. That's your experimentation lab, which you go in and you do your experiments. And so you decided that you're going to be practicing maybe Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, let's say. So you go in there, you start your experimentation phase. You don't know which method is going to be the right one for you. You don't know exactly what is going to be the winning ways to do this because you haven't experimented yet. It might be this way, it might be that way, you don't know. You have to experiment with it. And as you experiment with it, you have to track your experiments. And so what do I mean by that? Well, tracking is the one thing that all scientists do. When you conduct an experiment, you need to know what ingredients you put into that experiment. What did you do to what ingredients, what kind of things were what kind of factors were in that experiment that you were conducting. And so for us, the kind of things that you would put in there would be like, okay, I went to sleep at 12 o'clock. I woke up at 5 in the morning. I stayed up for 10 minutes. I went to my room, my astral room, and I practiced for 1 hour. I felt this, I saw that, I used this soundtrack, my mind felt this way, my body felt in this way, I used this exit technique, and so on and so forth. There's many, many things, right? And you need to write all of those down. You need to track, you need to make sure that you have sort of saved that information. That's what I call tracking. You track that information so that the next day when you wake up from the experience, either it happened or didn't happen, it doesn't matter. You want to then look at what happened. You want to analyze what happened. Where were you at on that scale? When I was talking about you have to get into the right state, where were you at? Were you super awake and you were just thinking a bunch of thoughts and you were just stuck there and then you got bored and frustrated? Or maybe you fell asleep and you forgot about everything and just lost focus. You need to know. And you need to analyze your practice, and you need to figure out, okay, it looks like I fell asleep after like an hour or so. Okay, so that means that you now need to do something about that, so that next time you practice, you don't fall asleep. So maybe it is I need to go to sleep instead of 12, you go to sleep at 9, so you get more sleep, for example. And then you do another experiment where you go to 9, where you go to sleep at 9, and then you see what happens then. And then you track that, you record that information, that practice. So this is something that most people don't do. They just watch a video, they start doing this video that they saw on YouTube, and they start practicing, and then nothing happened. They don't know why. The next day they do the same again, and then the next day the same again. And they, sometimes I hear people saying, I've been practicing for a year, and I've been just using the same 5 YouTube videos the whole time, and I was expecting something to happen, but nothing happened. And it's like you can't do the same thing over and over again and expect a different result. You always have to be analytical about what is happening and how you can actually get closer to that desired state that you want to be in. So you have to track your practice, and you have to start making sense of what is happening so that you can adjust the practice, fine-tune the practice, change things around, and then do the practice again. And that's what a projection blueprint is. And so this is what we are focusing on a lot in my program, focusing on creating a projection blueprint. So what is exactly, again, how can I clarify to you what is a projection blueprint? This is basically a blueprint that consists of all the ingredients that has to do with you having a successful projection. So once you have this projection blueprint, which consists of all of the details that is helping you to project, then you are able to just repeat the same blueprint to be able to have astral projections at will. This is how we get to a very high success rate. And you see most explorers, they don't actually have this. They have no awareness to why they're successful sometimes and why sometimes it just doesn't work. They think it's just the way it is, but actually if you figure out the science, and this is what we do in the program, then that's how you reach high success rates like 80%, like 90%, even 100% success rate, where you know that every time you lay down and you try to do it, it works because you fine-tune the practice to every single minute detail, and you know that once you do these specific details, it's going to happen for you. And this blueprint is going to be different to other people's blueprints. It's going to be your personal blueprint. And that's why it's so important to spend the time and through experimentation develop this projection blueprint within the program. Yes. And also another thing that is very helpful when it comes to tracking your practice is tracking your sleep. And so I actually have an aura ring which is a sleep tracker, a very small one. This little ring is a way to track my sleep. So this will tell me, when I'm in deep sleep, when I'm in REM sleep, light sleep, all of those different stages, and I can see how I'm sleeping. And why that is useful is because you don't want to be practicing when you're in deep sleep, because when you're in deep sleep, you're gone. You're going to be so deep, nothing's going to happen. So you want to target the states when you're in REM sleep, for example. That is a much better time to practice. And how do you know that? Well, you need some sort of tracking tools. And there are some free apps on the market. There is even some small watches you can get for the arms, for your hand, for your arm, that it tracks your sleep. But I find this one to be very, very good. It's called an Aura Ring. And you track your sleep with this. And so you really want to become a scientist with this practice. You really want to track everything. You want to analyze everything. And you want to implement new solutions to solve the problem. The problem is, how do you get to this state that is just above sleep? How do you get there, and how do you get there consistently so that you reach 100% success rate? That is really what you want to be focusing on. Now you guys could go ahead and you could do this on your own. You could be tracking this stuff on a piece of paper. You could be doing it on your own in that way. However, I would say that doing it alone is hard. It's when I started this, I did not do this alone. And I'm very sure that if I did try to do it alone, I would have failed quite quickly, because I had a limiting belief. First of all, I believed that I was not gifted enough to do this. And I would have probably given up after 2 or 3 weeks of trying and nothing happened. I'll be like, okay, well, I guess I was right. I'm not gifted enough to do this. Or I have to meditate for 10 years before I do this. Or I have to decalcify my pineal gland before I can do this. All these limiting beliefs will creep in and will stop you, because you will just not have anybody to talk to. Or you might not have any limiting beliefs, and you are ready to go with the practice, but what soundtrack do you use if you're a light sleeper, or if you're a deep sleeper? What kind of training wheels do you have to use? Which methods should you supposed to use, and what's supposed to happen with each method? How do you know all of this stuff? It's very difficult to figure everything out yourself. It takes a lot of time. And so what happens is, and this is what I've seen over the years by doing this, is that I have calls all the time with people that have tried for 2 years, 3 years, 5, 10, even 50 years. That's a very long time to be trying just to get out of body. And the problem is that getting out of body is the first step. It's just the very first step. It's like you're just opening the door to this new world, right? But then there's other levels to this. It's like, okay, now that you've learned how to get out of body, and you can do it on a consistent basis, which is key, because you don't want to have a tool. This is like a tool, right? And if your tool only works sometimes, it's not very useful. Imagine if your computer only worked some days. You're trying to send an email, but the computer only works some days. You don't know when. It's just a random thing. That won't be a very good computer. But the fact that it works every single time that you need it, it's very powerful. And so that's how this practice needs to be as well. You need to learn how to do this on a regular basis so that you can get out consistently, right? But then that's just the first step, because once you get out, then you have the next level. It's like, okay, now that you know how to get out, how do you stay out longer? How do you have a high awareness so that you can remember what your plan of action was? If you wanted to go and speak to a spiritual guide, maybe you forgot about that because you didn't have a very high awareness. You're kind of very dreamy, and you just kind of fall in a dreamy state, and you forget half of the experience. And so how do you keep your awareness levels up? How do you stay out longer? How do you go to the dimensions or have the outcomes that you're looking for? If it's reading the Akashic records, or if it's connecting with the deceased loved one, or any of these things, like how do you do that then? Where do you go? How do you do? And so that's like the next levels. So if it takes you 10 years just to learn how to get a body, then by the time how long is it going to take for you until you get to where you want to go? It's a very long time. And time is really limited in this physical life. As you guys know, you're here in a physical life for a short amount of time as a human in this body, and then you move on, right? So if you want to achieve having these profound experiences, then you need to really do it soon. You need to really get it going fast. You don't want to wait for 10 years, 5 years until you get there, right? And so you want to really invest in some help and join a program that is proven to work, that has helped lots of other people in the past, and it will be able to help you as well, so that you can get there much quicker. And I would say the best investment you can do is to invest in your consciousness. And time is something that you will never get back. But finances is something that you can just work back, right? So what is more valuable, time or finances? Obviously time, because you never get it back. It's something that you will spend. And another problem with that is that you can be practicing this for years alone, thinking that you're doing the right thing, that you're practicing the right way, but you might not be. And you might be wasting 2 or 3 years just doing things the wrong way. So why doing it alone when you can join a program and actually get the help that you need, get the coaching, get the personalized approach to this, so that you know how to get there. And that's how we work. We don't just give you a bunch of videos and say, hey, good luck, I'll see you later. We actually we make sure that you understand what the videos were saying, that you know what you have to do, and that you are getting your questions answered when you get stuck. If you tried a specific method we talked about and you didn't get a body, okay, where is the issue? How can we adapt the practice so that it works for you? There's a lot of back and forth. There's a lot of trial and error. And there's an experimentation phase that goes on with every student. Every student has to go through this. Every person that's ever done this practice had to go through this experimentation phase where they are learning how to do this. And when you have guidance on that path, you will not get lost. You will know what to do, and you will have fun along the way. And that's very important, because this practice, as soon as you get frustrated, it's over. You won't get out of body with frustration. You need to be in a loving state of mind. You need to be good to yourself. You need to be kind, and you need to treat yourself like you would treat somebody you love. And it's hard to do when you're very frustrated with yourself or with the practice. So it's very important that you get help with this practice if you're serious about really succeeding. If you said this is the most important thing on a scale of 1 to 10, this is like an 8 or a 9, then get help doing it. Do not try to do it alone. Don't do that. Go with the easy way. Join a program like ours. Now let's talk about the vision. What is the vision for Astral Projection exactly? Well, I believe that we need to find out more about our existence. I think right now we are a little bit lost. We are here, but we don't know why. We don't know where we come from. We don't know where we're going. We think we're just this flesh body and we just disappear afterwards. Or some of us believe that we're more than that, but we don't really have a clear picture of what are we more than this, and where do we go after, and what is the meaning of all this, and how and what is your individual purpose in this? What are you supposed to be doing with this life? Are you doing it right now? Are you on your path? Or maybe you're kind of lost as well because of the conditioning of society that tells you should get this car or that house or live this life or like these things and dislike that thing. There's so much conditioning that has been given to us throughout our childhood, throughout our lives, that the sort of the truth has been distorted so much that a lot of us are kind of living a life that is not going in tune with our mission, our spiritual purpose. It's going in a different direction. And so I think that for us at this point in time, we shouldn't just do it because it would be good, but we actually have to find out the answers to these questions, and we have to not only find out through belief, but actually have the experiences through astral projection, through some sort of whatever. I mean, it can also be a psychedelic experience, whatever it is, but I would say astral projection is much more powerful because it's something that you can do sober. There's no drugs involved. You can do it in your home. It's safe, and you can always return back to the body whenever you want. You know, it's not like a strong, powerful trip that lasts for 12 hours. It's a very controllable experience, a very pleasant experience. And so if we can have more and more people have these experiences, and this becomes actually a big thing that people talk about, in the same way that, you know, a few years ago it was unknown, it was strange to do yoga. Yoga was like, what is that? Like, is that even for men? You know, is it just for women? You know, some people said, and now everybody's doing it, and it's completely acceptable, and it's awesome, and we love it, right? It's the same with this. This is like up and coming to be something much more mainstream if we all help out with making that happen as well, because this is really gonna be the next step in our evolution. Because right now we're just not aware of our multidimensional self. We just are fully present, not even that, in our physical life, and then we don't know about the rest of us. The rest of our multidimensional selves has been neglected, has been just pushed under the rug, and we need to bring that to the surface more, because that's who we really are beyond this physical life, right? And so it's really like, it's our job as light workers to learn these things, to really learn how to do it for ourselves, and then spread this, and so that it becomes this awakening process where more and more people become aware of their abilities to be able to have these experiences, and are able to verify their existence, are able to verify the afterlife, are able to really understand what is going on all around us, and not being stuck in this little bubble of physical reality, and that's all there is. If you can touch it and feel it, that's the real thing. If you cannot, it's not real. There's so much more out there, and we need to start exploring, and learning from these other places, learning what is out there. How can it benefit us? How can we go out to different dimensions and learn from more evolved beings, more evolved societies? How can we bring that information back to this society and evolve this society to a much more loving and compassionate place to be in, with no wars? Right now we have this belief that we are separate, you versus me, let's fight for the land, but it's stupid, because we're all one, we're all the same species, we're just a cancer eating each other when we're fighting. It doesn't make sense that we should fight, right? We should be sharing, we should be in union with each other. And if you can have an experience where you realize that you are one with everybody else, with nature, with animals, with the whole planet, you're not separate, you're one with Source, with God, with the universe, you will no longer see things in separation, right? And so this is experiences that you can have with astral projection. And so wouldn't that be amazing if people were having these experiences on a regular basis, and were able to expand their consciousness to a much greater version of what they really are. Our perspective on ourselves would change so much. We would look at everything so differently. I look at things very differently after learning this stuff, and so does a lot of other explorers that are, you know, spending their time doing this. We don't see reality in the same way. We look at reality from a way more expanded perspective, how things are connected. We don't see all of this. I'm still human, don't get me wrong. I still have issues, I still have traumas to deal with and everything. But I would say that this really helps me to not get so bogged down onto my problems, thinking that this is all there is, and when I have a problem, it's like, oh, the whole world goes up and down. No, it's not, because I know this is just one little tiny experience of many more experiences to be had. And there is a much bigger picture taking place, playing out in the universe right now than this reality. There's much more happening. And I think that the human of the future is definitely going to be an astral projector, able to travel and explore the universe, gather knowledge, and bring that back to be able to evolve not only themselves but also the whole human species, and really take our consciousness to the next level. And it really starts with you. All of you guys listening right now, you need to do this. You need to take on this mission to raise the consciousness of the planet by raising your own consciousness. And astral projection, I would say, is the most powerful way to do so. So, I would like you to do that. Be sure to go on your journey. If this resonates with you and you would like to work with me, then I would recommend you to book a call. You can book a discovery call. It's free. There's a link below this video. If you're watching this on YouTube, there's going to be a link below. If you're watching this on our website, there's going to be a button below. But basically, you book a discovery call, and the discovery call is basically a call where we just talk about, where are you at right now? Are you a beginner? Are you advanced? What have you been trying? Where do you get stuck? And then we just find out if we can actually work together and help you to get somewhere with this practice, to get you to start having astral projections on a regular basis. So if that's you, then make sure to book a call with us straight away, and you're going to be speaking to either me or one of my team members. And so I'm really looking forward to meet some of you guys. Hopefully that you're ready to take on this journey. Please book a call with us and let's talk and let's make it happen. Don't wait. Don't postpone it. Do it right away and start taking action. The energy that you put into yourself right now, the future version of you will thank you, and so will everyone else. Because remember, when you raise your consciousness, that is going to ripple out to all the other humans around, right? We're connected. So the more people that raise their consciousness, the more other people will also raise their consciousness, because we're all connected, because we're all one. So I'm looking forward to see you on the inside. Thank you so much for watching this workshop. Please comment below and let me know how you liked it, how it was for you, and again, make sure to book a call. It's free. So awesome. Bye now.